While a lot has been done to create equal opportunities for all, the stats seem to tell a very different story. Our research by the Businesswomen's Association of South Africa indicates that only 2.4% of the country's chief executives are female, while other research suggests significant gaps in salaries globally. Equal opportunities for all? Well, it seems not. But with me in studio to discuss this is Lee-Anne Bac, Director of Advisory Services at Grant Thornton, and Sandra Burmeister, Chief Executive of Amrop Landelahni. Ladies, thanks for your time. Lee-Anne, let me start with you. Equal opportunities for all, yes or no? We've seen government crafting these policies, wanting to ensure that women are on top. Are they translating through to real numbers?
No. Yes,
that's short answer.
That's my short answer. The answer is no. Opportunities are not equal for men and women, globally and in South Africa. And so essentially, Grant Thornton conducts annual research amongst the sort of mid-sized businesses to determine the number of women who are in leadership positions. And in South Africa, 27% of women. 27% of the positions are held by women. And if you think about that, I mean, we make up 50% of the population. Why only 27%? And if you look further into it, you'll see that the positions held by women are what we would call softer positions. So it'll be things like the marketing manager or the HR manager or something like that. And not the CEO position is generally very much a male position. And there's a number of reasons behind all of this, which we can go into the debate about it just now.
Okay, so what's keeping women out of these boardrooms?
Well, you know, traditionally the causes have been attributed to the differences in skills and experience levels that women bring to the workplace, holding softer positions rather than the CEO roles. And they even attribute it to the motherhood gap. So women exit the workplace to have children and take time off, and therefore have less experience, and therefore don't make it, make the cut to the senior roles. But I think the reality is that a lot of these have been these differences have now been dealt with. More than 40% of women in MBA classes, for example. Larger numbers of women in the sciences, engineering, technology. So more women are moving into those professional capacities. So in truth, there seems to have been a kind of treading of water over the last 5 years. So we saw the spike between early 2000s up to the mid 2000s, where we shot up from sort of 8 and 9% to 17 and 20%. Everybody was desperately excited about it. But since then, we've really been treading water. And I was reflecting on it the other day, thinking we don't seem to be able to break that 25% barrier. Although what Lee-Anne says is right, 27%, that's in mid-cap businesses. When you start looking at larger corporates and listed entities, the number is actually 22%. And the global average is sitting around 20%. And we just don't, like the 4-minute mile, we just don't seem to be able to break that sort of 20-25% barrier, no matter how much legislation or effort is put into it.
So Lee-Anne, obviously you agree, see you nodding there. So there's obviously a glass ceiling there.
Yes.
What needs to be done? We've got legislation in place.
Yeah, we do.
So what else do we need to do?
You know what we really have a problem with in Africa in particular, and in South Africa it applies here too, we've got a strong gender bias. So basically that perception that women can't do that. And there's a perception that certain roles are only for men. So if you want to be a mechanic or an engineer or something like that, we don't. It's a perception that sorry, that's not a role for a female. And I ask, why not? What makes us different to any male? Why can't we do that job too? And the same applies for the CEO role. We have a perception of what a CEO should be and how a CEO should act, and we have a soft words like collaboration, flexibility, that type of thing are seen as female words.
Yes.
And our actual working environments don't actually have that in reality. We don't have a lot of that flexibility, the collaboration, and we need to start moving towards that. And we need to start changing our mindset of what we perceive the role is for a woman, and what a role is for a man. And why can't gender bias is a big issue, and the perception that just because I'm a female, I'm the one who must pour the tea when we go into a meeting. I mean, that happens quite on a regular basis.
And I want to pick up from that. She mentioned softer words, perceptions. Is it really not just us that are holding ourselves back? And what does this mean now? Should I act like a man in order to get ahead?
Well, I mean, I think I think women bring all sorts of different skills and capabilities, including a softer side to leadership. Doesn't necessarily mean that we can't get the job done. I think there's a few things that women themselves can do, but I also want to touch on what companies that are being successful in this area are doing, because I think those are two quite distinct things. So women themselves, I think, need to push back against outdated policy, and within businesses. It is true that our promotions are based on number of years of experience, for example. Pay rises are based on number of years experience. So the minute women take 2 or 3 years or 4 years out to have children, they're at an immediate disadvantage. And one of the Harvard professors last year said, if we only paid remuneration on output rather than on hours worked or years of experience, we would eradicate the pay gap immediately. So it's that kind of outdated practice that I think we really need to be quite vocal about dealing with. Now, companies that are doing well in this area really have taken a multi-pronged approach. So firstly, I think they're absolutely aware of the gender bias issues, and they measure progress all the time. They have a lot of different programs in, but one of the most important things they seem to be doing is allowing this motherhood gap to sort of be eradicated. So for women to coexist in the workplace, deliver the required outputs, but at the same time have the flexibility around the home, because the motherhood gap is a reality. Women do shoulder more of the home responsibilities than men do, and consequently they're simply not able to bring the same number of hours. It doesn't mean they can't deliver the outputs. And what's really interesting is if you look at Nordic countries, for example, who have the highest gender representativity, one of the biggest successes, or the reasons for that success, apart from having achieved a gender parity in education, which is a really crucial piece a number of years ago, is that they have policies in the workplace that allow your home and children to coexist with a career. Yeah, so and that's the sort of fundamental.
So would you say maybe having a creche at a corporation, is that one of the things that could be done to ensure that women's focus when they're at work is on work?
That is one of the things that can be done, but also, I mean, when you were talking about the Nordic countries, the emphasis there is on very much an equal society. So when it comes to paternity leave, the males get almost just as much paternity leave as the females do.
Okay.
So there's an equal recognition that within a family environment, both parents play an equal role, and it's not just left up to the mother, which I think is something that permeates quite strongly through Africa and in the East, and in the South American countries, where there's a strong emphasis that the female does the mothering and the parenting. Whereas you find in Northern Europe and in Eastern Europe, there's quite an emphasis on this is a role shared by both parents, and there's no reason why the female needs to compromise on her career to support the family. They basically both parents do it, and and it seems to work very well. But yes, but definitely we need to understand the cultural differences that take place as well. So something like making childcare facilities more readily available is definitely something that will help women in the workplace.
As we're out of time now, so I just want to get a closing comment from you, Sandra, in terms of anything with regards to making women right at the top. And well, it is Women's Day on Sunday, but it really should be all the time to be celebrating women, right?
That's absolutely right. And I think, we do have to celebrate our successes. The reality is that we have moved from 17% women in senior management positions to 22%. We've in South Africa managed to get 43% of our professionals. And yes, we can recognize we're making progress. I do think we've got to break the 25% barrier at the senior and board levels. More women at the top levels will help women move through the ranks, and more women in their own businesses will become the architects of gender empowerment in the future.
Ladies, thank you so much for coming in, shedding some light on the situation with regards to equality in the corporate space. Thank you so much to Lee-Anne Bac, Director of Advisory Services at Grant Thornton, and Sandra Burmeister, Chief Executive of Amrop Landelahni.